So we now have a date for the upcoming alien invasion. Now, as you guys know, they were reporting that this object, this mothership, whatever this thing is, that it would be here near Earth sometime around November, but they did not know the exact date. Well, reports came out that it would be anywhere between November 21st and December 5th. That was the report a couple of days ago. Now, it has changed because this object is moving faster than they thought. And look, I'm no scientist here. I can't fully explain what's going on here in the way that a scientist can. So I'm going to let you hear from the actual scientist in just a moment. But from my understanding, this object, whatever it is, it's not being affected by the gravitational pulls out there in the way that other objects are, in the way that other comets or asteroids or whatever are. And that's another reason why whatever this object is so unique. So this thing is moving faster than they thought. It's not being affected by these gravitational pulls. So now they have upped the date to October 29th. That's right. Looks like we may be getting invaded by aliens just in time for Halloween. And what better way to bring in Halloween than with an alien invasion? For some reason, I'm really thinking about that Halloween episode of Hey Arnold right now. If you're a 90s baby, you know what episode I'm talking about. But anyways, that's the date that we're looking at now. Sometime around October 29th. Sometime around Halloween. And we also know that there are serious conversations being had about them trying to intercept this object with a spacecraft that they have out there in space right now that is orbiting around Jupiter. Apparently, this spacecraft is at the end of its lifeline. They were planning on using their last little thrust to just thrust this object straight into Jupiter, right? But now they're considering trying to intercept this object with this spacecraft that they already got out there floating in space. Now, I don't know if we'll be able to even do that because I don't have any confidence in NASA. NASA couldn't even rescue the astronauts off of the space station that were stuck there for like 8 months. I talked about that a lot on my channel as well. They weren't able to even go up there and get those astronauts. They had to rely on Elon Musk. So I don't think that NASA is going to be able to use some almost out of commission spacecraft over by Jupiter to intercept this object, which is very large, by the way, much larger than any other interstellar object that we have ever documented. So, I don't know. This story is just getting, I guess I could say it's getting weirder, but I think it's already weird enough as is. But the more they explain why they think this is some sort of spacecraft or some sort of intelligent life behind this object, the more I understand why they have come to that conclusion. With that being said, though, I don't believe these are aliens. I still think the government has something up their sleeve. But you all decide what you think. I'm going to let you listen to one of the lead scientists that came up with this theory, and you all come to your own conclusion. After this clip that I'm about to play for you all, though, of course, I'll be right back with my own thoughts. Let's go ahead and roll the clip.
Supposed comet is catching the attention of some of the nation's most renowned scientists, as one Harvard professor is raising the theory this may actually be a piece of alien technology. According to renowned theoretical physicist Professor Avi Loeb, the comet is on an extremely unusual path, moving too fast to be bound by the sun's gravity, breaking a typically seen orbital trajectory. And while this comet poses no current threat, Professor Loeb believes more data should be collected to uncover the nature of this object and whether it has the potential to create risks in the future. Joining us now to discuss more is that scientist himself, Harvard professor of science and author of Extraterrestrial: The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth, Avi Loeb. Professor, it's always so good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
It's wonderful to see you, Natasha.
So, Professor Loeb, your recent paper suggests that this object might actually be alien technology rather than just another comet. What exactly about the speed, the trajectory, the behavior leads you to consider this as a possibility?
Well, first, it's relatively bright for its distance, implying that if it's a solid object, it has to be 20 kilometers in diameter. That's twice as big as the giant asteroid that killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. And the previous objects we saw from interstellar space were only hundreds of meters in size. So there is just not enough rocky material in interstellar space to provide us with a 20-kilometer rock that appears once per decade. But more importantly, the trajectory is very unusual. It's aligned with the orbit of the Earth around the sun. And the chance of that happening is 1 in 500. And then the timing of its arrival is very fine-tuned because it comes very close to Jupiter, to Mars, and to Venus. And the chance of that happening is 1 in 20,000. And moreover, it's moving in the opposite direction to the motion of the Earth around the sun. And when it will come closest to the sun, the Earth would be on the opposite side. So we won't be able to observe it. That's the point in time when it can do a maneuver with the aid of the sun's gravity. And that will happen on October 29th. And I already heard from a fan that he is trading options against the volatility of the markets, the stock market, with an expiration date because of the October 29th, because if it's alien tech, that would change the future in quite dramatic way. It will have a huge.
I mean, so many questions. So, I mean, if I have this correct, I believe you've proposed using a Richter scale before to assess such objects. A 0 means this is totally of natural origin. 10 means this is clearly engineered. Based on what we know about this object and what you're observing, what number would you give it now?
We don't have enough data. It depends how much weight you give to the unusual orbit. The trajectory is extremely rare and fine-tuned. And depending on that, how much you assign to that, you will give it a rank that is somewhere in the middle. It's difficult to assess at this time, but we will get, the good news is we'll get much more better data in the coming months. And the fun of doing science is that you can ask questions at first and then answer them with data. And we don't need to have an opinion, especially in a blind date like this one. All bets are off. This visitor came from interstellar space, and it's possible that it targeted the inner solar system for a technological reason.
From what you're describing, this sounds like one of the worst blind dates potentially I've ever heard of. Do we have the capabilities right now to track, intercept, and even respond to something non-human entering our solar system as soon as October?
Well, it will be moving relative to Earth at nearly 100 kilometers per second when it's closest to the sun, simply because it moves in the opposite direction to the motion of the Earth. There is no way for us to send a rocket that will intercept with it from Earth. However, I wrote a paper last week that there is actually a spacecraft that is orbiting Jupiter. It's called Juno. And it's at the end of its life. The plan was to send it straight into Jupiter in September 2025 because the mission has ended. But what I realized is that if instead of giving it a push so that it ends its life inside Jupiter, you give it a push away from Jupiter, if the push is sufficient, then it will actually intercept the orbit of 3I Atlas, this new object, in March 2026, when it will come very close to Jupiter. And on Tuesday this week, just a few days ago, I had a phone call from Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who asked me for an update about 3I Atlas. And I mentioned this to her, and she wrote a letter to NASA on Thursday last week, just 2 days ago, in which she encourages NASA to look into the possibility of using Juno as a probe of 3I Atlas.
I really appreciate that update, and I hope you keep us updated on this as well. Professor Avi Loeb, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And if you want to hear...
When dealing with a story like this one, I feel like we have to look at all of the possibilities, right? Because who would have thought that this was even possible? 20 or 30 years ago? No one thought that we would be having open conversations on the nightly news about possible alien invasions. So in looking at this story, we have to look at it from every angle. We have to think of all of the possibilities at play here. And when I say that, I'm not even specifically talking about this craft or whatever it is itself. I'm talking about some of the agendas that may be at play behind the scenes. Some of the conversations that will open up because of this story. Now, I've talked about the possibility that this is just the government trying to fast track Project Bluebeam or something like that. We all know that's a possibility, or at least those of us who knows what Project Bluebeam is, we know that's a possibility. But another thing that I find interesting is that, you know, these different defense contractors and these weapons manufacturers and all of this, the war machine, if you will, I've gotten the sense for a very long time, and I mean, it's not like I just got this sense, it's obvious, that they've been making a move towards space-based weapons, right? They've been making a move towards space-based weapons for a very long time. Weaponizing satellites, putting missiles in outer space, missile defense systems in orbit. We know that they've been toying around with a lot of that stuff for a while now. So who's to say that they don't throw out stories like this one to kind of use as an excuse as to why, hey, we need your taxpayer dollars to fund this new, space-based laser that will shoot down, foreign invaders from otherworldly planets or whatever. You know what I mean? I know it sounds weird. It sounds like we're talking Star Trek or something here. But no, this is where we're at in the modern day world. Some people are still stuck in the past. Folks, we're living in the future. The future is now. So, of course, they made, the Space Force not that long ago, the new military branch. So we know that they're trying to, militarize space, if you will. It's like the military-industrial complex is through with Earth. They've made enough money off of fights and battles that have happened on the ground on Earth. They're ready to move to a new frontier in outer space. And as they're moving into that frontier, as these space-based weapons become more of a reality, at the same time that we see that happening, we're also seeing all of these news stories about aliens and UFOs and threats from outer space. Is this a coincidence that all of this is happening at the same time? Or are these stories being used to fuel our military-industrial complex's new venture into outer space? It's just another one of those questions that I have about this whole entire situation. And the very idea of them introducing, flying spacecrafts into this object, whatever it is, it makes you wonder what plans do they have moving forward. Because I put out videos in the past laying out plans for the future about how they're going to have weapons and stuff that will knock asteroids, out of their path and stuff like that. They're working on all types of crazy stuff. So sometimes part of me wonders if these stories are just not real at all, if they're just made up stories to drum up support for outer space-based weapons and all of this other stuff that they want to build in the near future, some of which they're already building now, some of which is already out there in orbit as we speak. But you guys let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.